11-year-old Lily Grant sat unnoticed in row 8, just another child lost in the adult world. But when the engine sputtered and the pilot slumped over the controls, she seized the radio mic. "This is Lily Grant. I'm 11 years old. Our pilot is incapacitated, and I require assistance to land this aircraft. Before you hear the rest, drop a comment about where you're listening from. And please like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories." The morning sunlight was a warm blanket as Lily Grant walked across the small airfield, her pink backpack slung over her shoulder. She was only 11, but carried herself with a quiet maturity that made her seem younger. Her dark hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail, and she wore denim shorts with plain white sneakers. The few people at Pine Ridge Regional Airport offered her the same gentle smiles adults reserve for children traveling solo. Lily ascended the short stairs into the blue and white Cessna 172. The plane felt incredibly small compared to the commercial jets from the movies, seating only 8 people in 4 rows. She located her assigned seat in the very last row, row 8. She stowed her backpack beneath the seat ahead and fastened her seatbelt with a familiar click. Captain John Russo was at the controls. He was a man of about 50, with salt and pepper hair and warm, reassuring brown eyes, his white pilot's shirt adorned with gold stripes on the epaulettes. Spotting Lily, he smiled and made his way back to her. "Well, hello there, young lady," Captain Russo said, his voice deep and friendly. "What's your name?" "Lily Grant," she replied with practiced politeness. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lily. We're in for a beautiful flight today. Is this your first time on a little plane like this?" He produced a small chocolate bar from his shirt pocket and offered it to her. Lily simply shook her head. "No, sir. This is my very first time." "Well, you have nothing to worry about. I've been flying these skies for 20 years. I'll make sure you have a smooth ride. Are you headed to see family in Boise?" "Yes, sir. My grandmother lives there." Lily didn't elaborate about her father. She didn't share that he, too, had been a pilot, or that he had been lost in a crash just 2 years prior when she was only 9. And she certainly didn't mention the countless hours she devoted each night to studying aviation manuals on her tablet. Captain Russo gave her shoulder a light, comforting pat. "All right then, you just lean back and enjoy the scenery. Holler if you need a thing. We should touch down in Boise in a little over 2 hours." As the captain returned to the cockpit, the remaining passengers boarded. Mrs. Gable, an elderly woman with perfectly coiffed white hair and a lavender cardigan, took a seat in row 6, directly in front of Lily. Upon noticing Lily was alone, she turned, her face etched with concern. "Are you flying all on your own, sweetie?" Mrs. Gable inquired. "How old are you?" "I'm 11. My mom dropped me off, and my grandma is meeting me in Boise." "Oh, for heaven's sake. So young to be traveling by yourself." "But you don't fret. We will all keep an eye on you." Mrs. Gable rummaged in her purse and retrieved a butterscotch candy. "Here, dear. Would you like one? The pressure change can make your ears feel funny." Lily accepted the candy with a polite "thank you." She understood Mrs. Gable meant well, but adults consistently underestimated her. To them, an 11-year-old's world revolved around video games and cartoons. Mr. Hayes boarded next, a businessman in a sharp navy suit clutching a leather briefcase. He settled into row 4, glancing back at Lily with a broad, friendly smile. "Hey there, sport. First time flying?" When Lily gave a small nod, he went on, "You couldn't have picked a better day for it. Just wait till you see the Rockies from up here. It's like something out of a magazine." The final 2 passengers were the Millers, a young couple bubbling with excitement for their Colorado vacation. They occupied rows 2 and 3, waving at Lily and asking if she was excited for her trip. Everyone was kind to Lily, yet they all perceived her through the same lens, a small, quiet girl who required their supervision and protection. They assumed she was anxious about flying and would be helpless if anything went wrong. Not a single one of them knew Lily's secret. The truth was, Lily had been immersing herself in the world of airplanes and flight for 2 solid years. After her father's accident, she discovered his collection of aviation textbooks in the garage. Her mother had wanted to discard them, but Lily begged to keep them. Her mom assumed they were just mementos, something to remember him by. But Lily did far more than just keep the books. She devoured every page, grappling with the technical diagrams and complex terminology. She used the internet to look up unfamiliar words. She binged YouTube tutorials on flight mechanics. She lurked in online forums where professional pilots discussed emergency protocols and flight theory. Lily's favorite pastime was her flight simulator program on her tablet. This wasn't a simple arcade game. It was a highly realistic simulation that taught genuine piloting skills. She had mastered engine startups, instrument readings, radio communication, and emergency checklists. She practiced relentlessly for hours every evening after finishing her schoolwork. Her mother just thought she was playing games or watching kid-friendly videos. Lily never saw a reason to correct her. Adults assumed children couldn't grasp complex subjects like aeronautics. They would have insisted the simulators were too advanced for a girl her age. But Lily's father had been different. Before his death, he had begun to teach her the fundamentals of flight. He had shown her the basic instruments, explaining the principles of lift and aerodynamics. He told her flying was equal parts art and science, and that anyone could master it with enough dedication. "Wisdom doesn't have an age requirement, Lily," he used to say. "If you learn the right things and practice hard, there's nothing you can't do." Lily ached for her father daily, but his words fueled her passion. She yearned to understand the world he had loved so deeply, even though it was the same world that had stolen him from her. Now, sitting in row 8 of the Cessna, Lily was attuned to the symphony of sounds around her. She could hear Captain Russo's voice in the cockpit, a calm back and forth with the control tower. She recognized the click and whir of switches and avionics. To most passengers, these were just airplane noises, but Lily understood their meaning. The engines coughed to life before settling into a steady, reassuring thrum. From her studies, Lily knew it was a Lycoming O320 engine generating 150 horsepower. She could discern from its pitch that it was running smoothly, all 4 cylinders firing in perfect sequence. Captain Russo's voice crackled over the intercom. "Good morning, folks. This is your captain speaking. We'll be taxiing to the runway shortly. It's a gorgeous day to fly, clear skies, and just a light breeze. Flight time to Boise will be approximately 2 hours and 15 minutes. Please ensure your seat belts are securely fastened and seats are in the full upright position." The aircraft started to move, rolling deliberately across the concrete toward the active runway. Lily gazed out her window, watching the ground crew darting around other planes. She saw fuel trucks, luggage carts, and workers in high-visibility vests guiding the airport's mechanical ballet. Mrs. Gable turned in her seat again. "Are you holding up back there, honey? Takeoff can be a little scary for some kids." "I'm okay, thank you," Lily replied. She wasn't scared in the least. She was thrilled. It was her first time in a real plane, and she wanted to absorb every single moment. The plane paused at the runway's edge as Captain Russo completed his final pre-flight checks. Lily could just make out his voice speaking to the tower. "Pine Ridge Tower, Cessna 519 Echo, ready for departure. Runway 21, Cessna 519 Echo, you are cleared for takeoff. Runway 21, wind 220 at 5 knots. The engine roar intensified as Captain Russo advanced the throttle. The plane began its charge down the runway, gathering momentum. Lily felt a gentle pressure push her back into her seat as they accelerated. The vibration of the wheels on the asphalt grew into a high-speed hum, and then, with a final bump, they were airborne. The nose of the Cessna tilted skyward, and Lily watched the world shrink below. Houses and cars became tiny miniatures. The feeling was exhilarating, far more visceral than her simulator. "Wow," Mr. Bess Miller exclaimed from row 3. "Just look at that view." Lily pressed her face against the cool glass of the window, mesmerized by the patchwork landscape unfolding beneath them. She could see farms, highways, and rivers laid out in perfect geometric patterns. The mountains loomed in the distance, a hazy wall of purple and blue. Captain Russo leveled the plane out at 8,500 feet. The engine's roar subsided to a steady, comfortable drone. Lily's trained ear told her everything was operating perfectly. The flight was proceeding exactly by the book. For the first hour, a sense of calm settled over the cabin. Mrs. Gable flipped through a magazine. Mr. Hayes typed away on his laptop. The Millers snapped photos out the window, excitedly discussing their vacation agenda. Lily was reading a novel, but her senses remained tuned to the aircraft. Her father had always stressed the importance of listening to your plane. "The airplane will tell you if something is wrong," he'd said. "You just have to know its language." Initially, everything sounded flawless. The engine hummed consistently, free of any odd vibrations or changes in pitch. The air rushing over the wings produced a constant whoosh, indicating they were maintaining the correct airspeed. All the normal sounds of flight were present. But then, about 90 minutes into the journey, Lily detected something new. It was a faint, unfamiliar tremor she felt through the floor, so subtle that none of the other passengers seemed to notice. But Lily felt it. She glanced toward the cockpit and saw that Captain Russo was now scanning his instruments with a new intensity. His previously relaxed demeanor was gone. He was still flying the plane with a steady hand, but something had clearly captured his attention. The vibration grew marginally stronger over the next few minutes. Lily could now hear a faint roughness in the engine's rhythm that definitely hadn't been there before. Her studies told her this could indicate a range of issues, a fouled spark plug, a fuel system problem, or something far more serious brewing under the cowling. Lily remained silent, not wanting to create panic, but she continued to listen and observe the pilot. She saw him making small adjustments to the controls, his eyes darting across the gauges more and more frequently. Then it happened. A loud bang erupted from the front of the plane, followed by a violent shudder that jolted everyone in their seats. The engine's smooth drone degenerated into a rough, sputtering cough, like a car desperately in need of a tune-up. The plane yawed sharply to the left, and several passengers cried out in alarm. "What was that?" Mrs. Gable cried, her voice trembling with fear. Captain Russo's voice came over the intercom, but his friendly tone was replaced by one of tense professionalism. "Folks, we appear to be experiencing some mechanical trouble with the engine. No need for immediate concern, but as a precaution, I am diverting to the closest airport for an emergency landing. Please double-check that your seatbelts are fastened and try to remain calm." But Lily detected a strain in his voice that the others missed. This wasn't a minor issue they could nurse to the nearest runway. The engine was failing, and they were flying over rugged mountains with nowhere safe to land. The engine continued its rough performance, emitting a series of terrifying noises that grew worse with each passing minute. It would sometimes smooth out for a brief, hopeful moment, only for the violent shaking and noise to return with greater intensity. Mr. Hayes leaned forward, trying to peer into the cockpit. "How much farther to an airport?" he called out. Captain Russo didn't reply at first. He was absorbed in working the radio and wrestling to maintain control of the aircraft. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight. "We are approximately 30 miles from the nearest suitable airfield. I am communicating with air traffic control, and they are providing us with priority assistance." Lily peered out her window at the unforgiving terrain below. It was a sea of mountains and dense forest, devoid of roads or clearings large enough for a plane to land safely. If the engine failed completely, their options would be grim. The engine noise worsened, sputtering and cutting out entirely for several seconds at a time. With each silence, the plane would drop, and a wave of nausea would sweep through the cabin. When the engine roared back to life, it sounded weaker than before. Mrs. Gable was beginning to lose her composure. Oh my God, we're going to crash, aren't we?" "Please remain calm," Captain Russo shouted back. "I am a highly experienced pilot, and I will get us down safely." But Lily could see the toll the struggle was taking on him. Through the gap between the seats, she had a partial view into the cockpit. She saw him hunched over the controls, his voice urgent as he spoke into the radio. Beads of sweat trickled down his neck, despite the cool cabin air. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," she heard him transmit. "This is Cessna 519 Echo, declaring an emergency. I have a complete engine failure at 8,500 feet, roughly 25 miles southwest of Aspen Creek Airfield. I am searching for a place to put this aircraft down." The controller's response crackled back. "Cessna 519, Echo, roger your mayday. Are you able to glide to Aspen Creek?" Lily heard Captain Russo let out a heavy sigh. "Negative. I don't believe we have the altitude to make it. The terrain is all mountains and trees. I need to find a road, a field. I see no viable options." It was at that moment that a dire situation became catastrophic. Lily watched in abject horror as Captain Russo suddenly clutched at his chest with his left hand. His face turned ashen and contorted in agony. He let out a small, choked gasp and then collapsed forward, his weight falling against the control yoke. The airplane immediately banked into a sharp right turn as his unconscious body pushed against the controls. Without a pilot, the plane would enter a deadly spiral and crash into the mountainside within minutes. The other passengers hadn't yet grasped the new horror. They were looking out their windows or had their eyes squeezed shut in prayer. From their seats, none of them could see into the cockpit. Lily faced a critical choice, and she had to make it instantly. She could scream, alerting everyone that the pilot was down. She could give in to the panic that everyone would expect from an 11-year-old girl. She could wait for one of the adults to realize what had happened and attempt to intervene. Or she could draw upon everything her father had taught her and everything she had absorbed during 2 years of devoted secret study. Lily chose action. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood. "I'll be right back," she told Mrs. Gable, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. She moved swiftly up the narrow aisle. When she was close enough to get a clear view, her worst fears were confirmed. Captain Russo was slumped over the controls, unconscious. His breathing was shallow but present. He was in the throes of a medical emergency, likely a heart attack triggered by the extreme stress. The aircraft was now in a steep, descending right turn. Without intervention, they would impact the ground in less than 2 minutes. Lily squeezed into the cramped cockpit and carefully shifted Captain Russo back into his seat. She had to pry his hand off the control yoke to gain access. Her first action was to level the wings, turning the yoke to the left. The plane immediately straightened out of its steep bank. Next, she gently pulled back on the yoke to arrest the rapid descent. The aircraft responded exactly as her simulator had, though everything felt heavier, more real. She could feel the air currents buffeting the plane, forcing her to make constant, minute corrections to maintain stable flight. Now, she needed help. Lily took the microphone from its clip on the instrument panel. She had spent hundreds of hours listening to real air traffic control communications online. She knew the proper radio phraseology. She keyed the transmit button and spoke with as much clarity as she could muster. "Boise Center, this is Cessna 519 Echo. I have an emergency situation." The reply was instantaneous. "Cessna 519 Echo, Boise Center, go ahead with your emergency." Lily inhaled deeply. "Boise Center, the pilot of this aircraft is unconscious. I am a passenger, and I need immediate assistance." There was a stunned silence on the other end before the controller responded, his voice laced with confusion and disbelief. "Cessna 519 Echo, say again your last transmission. Did you say the pilot is unconscious?" "That is correct," Lily affirmed, her voice unwavering. "Captain Russo experienced a medical emergency and is unresponsive. I am now flying the aircraft, but I need someone to help me." Another pause. "Cessna 519 Echo, who am I speaking with? What is your level of aviation experience?" "My name is Lily Grant. I am 11 years old. I do not have a pilot's license, but I have been studying aviation and practicing on flight simulators for 2 years." By this point, the other passengers realized something was terribly wrong. Mrs. Gable had turned to see Lily's seat empty. Mr. Hayes had overheard her on the radio. "What is happening?" Mr. Miller called out. "Where is the pilot?" Lily kept her gaze locked on the instruments, but she called back to them. "Captain Russo is unconscious. I am flying the airplane now. Please stay in your seats and let me focus," Mrs. Gable shrieked. "What? You can't fly a plane. You're just a little girl." "I can do this," Lily said with authority. "But I need all of you to stay calm and let me work." A new voice came over the radio, this one calmer, more measured than the first controller. "Lily, my name is Mark Sullivan. I'm a flight instructor, and I'm going to help you. You've done an incredible job so far. Can you tell me what you see on your instrument panel?" Lily's eyes swept across the gauges, a routine she had performed hundreds of times on her simulator. The altimeter reads 7,200 feet. The airspeed indicator is at 95 knots. The attitude indicator shows we are flying level. The heading indicator is at 090 degrees. "That's perfect, Lily. You're giving me exactly what I need." "Okay. First things first. We need to establish the best glide speed. I want you to gently push the nose forward until your airspeed reads 68 knots. Lily eased the control yoke forward until the needle on the airspeed indicator settled on 68. The plane immediately felt more stable, gliding more efficiently through the air. "Excellent," Mark said. "You are now at best glide speed. That will maximize your range for every foot of altitude you lose." "How much altitude are you losing per minute?" Lily timed the altimeter for a full minute. "About 500 feet per minute. That's textbook for a Cessna 172 with engine failure. Lily, I need to ask you a very important question. How much do you truly know about flying? I need to understand your capabilities." Lily considered her response carefully. This was a pivotal moment. If she overstated her skills, Mark might give her instructions she couldn't handle. If she downplayed them, he might withhold crucial information. "My father was a pilot before he passed away," she began. "He taught me the fundamentals of how airplanes work and how to read the instruments. Since he's been gone, I've been studying aviation books and websites every day. I've practiced emergency procedures on realistic flight simulators for hundreds of hours. I know I'm just a kid, but I understand how this works." "Lily, what was your father's name?" "Michael Grant. He flew for Rocky Mountain Aviation." There was a brief pause. When Mark's voice returned, it held a new warmth. "I knew your father, Lily. He was a phenomenal pilot and a fine man. I am so very sorry for your loss." "Thank you," Lily said, her voice soft. "Lily, if you have half the skill your father did, we are going to get through this. Now, I'm looking at the radar and I see your position. There is a small airport called Aspen Creek Airfield about 15 miles directly ahead of you. I believe you can make it." By now, all the passengers understood the situation. Mr. Hayes had moved forward to check on Captain Russo. Mrs. Miller was crying softly into her hands. Mrs. Gable sat in stunned silence, her eyes fixed on the small girl who was now their pilot. But a shift had occurred in the cabin's atmosphere. The raw panic was slowly being replaced by a fragile sense of awe. They were beginning to believe that this 11-year-old girl might actually be capable of the impossible. "Lily," Mark continued, "I need you to turn to a heading of 095 degrees. That will point you directly at the airfield." Lily gently turned the yoke to the right, watching the heading indicator until it aligned with 095. The aircraft responded smoothly, banking toward the airport. "Good. Now, as we head that way, I'm going to talk you through the approach and landing. Have you ever practiced landings on your simulator?" "Yes, hundreds of times. But I know a real plane is different." "You're right, it is. But the principles are identical. The single most important thing is to maintain your airspeed all the way down. Come in too fast, and you'll float past the end of the runway. Too slow, and the plane will stall and fall out of the sky." As they glided toward Aspen Creek Airfield, Mark methodically walked Lily through every step of the landing sequence. He explained how to deploy the flaps to decrease speed, how to judge the correct angle of descent, and how to execute the flare just before touchdown. Lily absorbed every word, asking clarifying questions when needed. Her father had always said that the best pilots were the ones who never stopped asking questions. "I have the airport in sight," Lily announced, as a thin strip of runway materialized in the distance. "Outstanding. Lily, I want you to fly directly over the field at your current altitude. This will give us a chance to assess the runway and the wind conditions." As they passed over Aspen Creek Airfield, Lily saw a line of fire trucks and ambulances parked alongside the runway. News of their emergency had spread, and a reception committee was ready. "The windsock indicates a westerly wind at about 10 knots, Mark said. "You'll be landing on runway 09, directly into the wind. That's good. It will help slow you down." Lily flew past the airport, then initiated a wide, sweeping left turn to align with the runway. This was the most demanding phase of the flight. Her judgment of altitude, speed, and distance had to be flawless. "You're doing great, Lily. Begin your descent now. Aim for the numbers at the start of the runway, but don't stress about being perfect. That runway is 4,000 feet long. You have plenty of space." Lily started a controlled descent toward the runway. She could see the large white 09 painted on the blacktop. Fire trucks were stationed on either side, their lights flashing, ready to move in if needed. 2 miles out, Mark's voice guided her. "Extend your flaps to the first setting. There should be a lever on the panel labeled Flaps." Lily located the lever and moved it to the first notch. She immediately felt the plane decelerate and the nose pitch up slightly. She compensated by pushing forward on the yoke to maintain her descent path. "Perfect. How does that feel?" "Different than the simulator, but I think I can do this." "I know you can." 1 mile out. "Lower flaps to the second setting." Lily moved the flap lever again. The plane slowed further, becoming more stable in its approach. She could now make out individual figures on the ground, all watching her. 1/2 mile out. "You're looking good, Lily. Just keep your focus on your airspeed and aim for those numbers." This was it. The runway was rushing up to meet them. She made tiny adjustments with the controls, keeping the plane centered and descending at the correct angle. 1/4 mile. Start thinking about your flare. As you get close to the ground, you'll need to gently pull back on the yoke to level off just above the asphalt. The ground was coming up fast. The runway markings were now crystal clear. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but her hands on the controls were rock steady. "You're almost there, Lily. Start your flare, now. Pull back gently, gently." Lily eased back on the control yoke, raising the plane's nose. The rate of descent slowed, and for a breathtaking moment they floated just feet above the runway. Hold it off, let it settle." The main wheels kissed the pavement with a soft chirp. Lily held the nose wheel off the ground until it settled down on its own accord. They were down, rolling straight down the center line. "Brakes, Lily. Apply pressure to the top of the rudder pedals to slow down." Lily pressed on the brake pedals, and the Cessna decelerated rapidly. In a few hundred feet, they rolled to a complete stop in the middle of the runway. For a long moment, the cockpit was filled with an almost deafening silence. Then, Mark Sullivan's voice, filled with emotion, crackled over the radio. "Cessna 519, Echo, welcome to Aspen Creek Airfield." That was one of the finest emergency landings I have ever had the privilege to witness. The cabin behind her exploded in cheers. Mrs. Gable was sobbing and laughing simultaneously. Mr. Hayes was applauding. The Millers were embracing, shouting, "She did it! She did it!" Within seconds, emergency vehicles swarmed the small plane. Paramedics rushed aboard to attend to Captain Russo, who had regained consciousness and was breathing on his own. He would later make a full recovery from his heart attack. As Lily climbed out of the aircraft, she was met by a crowd of firefighters, paramedics, airport personnel, and news reporters who had been monitoring the emergency on their scanners. Everyone wanted to shake her hand, to tell her how incredible she was. A reporter shoved a microphone in her face. Lily, can you tell us how you knew what to do?" Lily chose her words with care. My dad was a pilot. He taught me that you can learn anything if you really want to. He said flying isn't magic, it's just physics and following procedures. If you study hard enough and practice enough, you can do things other people might think are impossible. Mark Sullivan arrived at the airport 20 minutes later. He was a tall man with kind, graying hair. When he saw Lily, he walked directly to her and shook her hand with formal respect. "Lily, I have been flying and teaching for over 30 years. I have never seen anyone, adult or child, handle a crisis with such remarkable skill and grace. Your father would be bursting with pride." "Thank you," Lily said softly. "I just did what he would have taught me to do." More reporters descended on the small airfield throughout the afternoon, all clamoring to interview the 11-year-old girl who had landed a plane and saved 5 lives. The story was syndicated on national news networks and became a viral sensation online. But amidst all the praise and excitement, Lily remained humble, focused on the facts. When a reporter asked if she felt like a hero, she replied, "I don't feel like a hero. I feel like someone who was ready when preparation mattered." When asked what advice she had for other kids, she said, "Learn things. Study what you're passionate about. Even if adults say you're too young to understand, you never know when that knowledge will become the most important thing in the world." Lily's mother arrived at Aspen Creek Airfield that evening, her face a mixture of relief and overwhelming pride. She had driven non-stop from Boise the moment she heard the news. "I had no idea you knew so much about flying," her mother said, pulling her into a tight hug. "I wanted to understand Dad's world," Lily explained. "I know flying took him from us, but it was also the thing he loved most. I just wanted to understand why." 6 months later, Lily Grant received her student pilot certificate, becoming one of the youngest people in Idaho to begin formal flight training. Mark Sullivan became her official instructor, and they flew together nearly every weekend. Lily continued to be a star student, both in school and in the cockpit. She joined the Civil Air Patrol, volunteered at local air shows, and gave talks to youth groups about aviation safety and the importance of being prepared. The FAA even used the audio recording of her landing in their training materials as an example of clear communication and composure under extreme duress. Aviation magazines published feature articles about her, calling her landing a textbook display of airmanship. But the accolades that meant the most to Lily came from other pilots. Wherever she went within the aviation community, seasoned aviators treated her not as a child, but as an equal. They didn't see a kid who got lucky. They saw a fellow pilot who had been tested under the most extreme pressure and had proven herself worthy of the sky.